Welcome to today's deep dive into one of the strangest groups of fishes, the frogfishes. They don't swim, preferring to walk. They don't chase, preferring to wait. And yet, when they strike, they have one of the fastest movements in the ocean. But what exactly are frogfishes? How did they evolve such unusual features? And where do they fit among their closest relatives, the anglerfishes? If you'd like to learn more, check out the document in the description with research papers and image credits. Frogfishes belong to the order Laphaeiformes, commonly known as the anglerfishes. Even if you haven't heard of frogfishes, you've likely come across anglerfishes. They're often depicted in media as deep-sea oddities with bioluminescent lures and terrifying appearances. Those certainly exist, but they are not the ones we're focusing on today. Frogfishes belong to an earlier branch of the anglerfish lineage, and instead of inhabiting the abyss, they thrive in shallow coral reefs. In contrast to their deep-sea cousins with glowing lures and nightmarish profiles, frogfishes specialize in camouflage. Warts, spines, and strange protrusions give them the texture of sponges or coral, letting them disappear into the reef. What unites all anglerfishes is their hallmark feature, the elysium. This is a modified dorsal fin spine that juts out from the head like a fishing rod, giving the group its name. At its tip sits the esker, or lure, which can vary enormously between species. In some, it is little more than a fleshy bulb, while in others it resembles worms, shrimps, or even small fishes, sometimes equipped with filaments or bioluminescent bacteria to enhance the illusion. By twitching and waving the elysium, the anglerfish brings its esker to life, deceiving prey into venturing close enough for an ambush. Anglerfishes are divided into 5 suborders. First is Lophiioidea, with the monkfishes and goosefishes. This group has a single family with around 30 species, typically found deeper than 200 meters. They are recognized by their broad, flattened heads and scaleless skin. The next suborder is Antenarioidea, the frogfishes, along with their closest relatives. Our focus today is the family Antenariidae, with around 50 species, but this group has a total of 7 families. Following that is Chaunochordae, including the sea toads and coffin fishes. Also a single family, this is the first group truly adapted to the deep sea, with many species living as deep as 2,400 meters or 8,000 feet or more. Then there is Ogchocephaloidea, or the batfishes, again with a single family. These inhabit tropical and subtropical waters worldwide, from around 200 to over 3,000 meters. That is 660 to 9,840 feet deep. Their flattened bodies make them resemble rays, and like most other groups of anglerfish, they live on the sea floor. That brings us to Ceratioidea, the classic deep-sea anglerfish. With over 160 known species across 5 families, they're the only anglerfishes adapted to life in the open water column. Many are bioluminescent, and some even display sexual parasitism, with tiny males permanently attaching to the much larger females. In other words, they have some of the most extreme adaptations in the animal kingdom, making them a great candidate for a future video. Alright, so heading back to the suborder Antenarioidea, what are the frogfish's closest relatives? Historically, this group contains 4 families. Antenariidae, of course, holds the true frogfishes, but they were grouped alongside the handfishes, the 4-armed frogfishes, and the Arafura frogfish. The handfishes, and Brachyonychthiidae, include 4 species in 5 genera, named for their hand-like fins with prominent rays resembling finger bones. They are best known for using these fins to walk across the sea floor. The Arafura frogfish, Lophiichthyes boschmai, is distinct enough to warrant not only its own genus, but also its own family. It differs from true frogfishes in lacking their proportionally large head. The 4-armed frogfishes in Tetrabrachyidae contain just 2 species in 2 separate genera. Their name comes from the upper parts of their pectoral fins being divided, giving the impression of having 4 arms. So, with the true frogfishes in Antenariidae, that makes 4 families, but what about the others? Here's where it gets tricky. Although modern sources now recognize 7 families, many still include the remaining 3 within Antennariidae, making the distinctions harder to follow. For clarity, I'll include these 3 families alongside the frogfishes we're covering today. But keep in mind their exact placement is still debated. Histiophrynidae, the star-fingered frogfishes, was elevated to family rank in 2012 after previously being treated as a subfamily of Antennariidae. If accepted, it contains 9 genera, many of them found mainly in Australia. 2 more families were proposed in 2022. The first is Richeridae, nicknamed the Balrog frogfishes after Tolkien's fiery creatures. This group has just 2 species in a single genus, the tasseled frogfish and Glover's anglerfish. The last family, Tethycarpidae, contains only 1 known species, Butler's frogfish. We'll come across some of these unusual families again shortly, but for now, let's look more closely at what makes frogfishes so distinctive. They are compact, globular fishes, often covered in bumps, warts, and skin flaps. These irregular structures break up their outline, helping them resemble the sponges, corals, or algae they live among. Some species even specialize so closely that they mimic a particular type of coral or seaweed, making them nearly impossible to spot. Their camouflage is not fixed. Many frogfishes can alter their skin patterns, shifting spots, stripes, and blotches over the course of days or weeks. This flexibility lets them adapt to seasonal changes in the reef, or move between different habitats without standing out. In some species, frogfishes sport filamentous skin extensions that resemble strands of algae, further complementing their disguise. These aren't grown on demand, but are part of the fish's natural body plan. Interestingly, frogfishes raised in bearer aquariums tend to develop fewer or shorter extensions, hinting that habitat structure can influence the development of these features. Frogfishes are also unusual in how they move around. Unlike most fish, they prefer not to swim. Instead, they walk along the seafloor using their pectoral and pelvic fins, which have evolved into limb-like structures. This is a slow method of moving, but it allows them to move deliberately and position themselves precisely near potential prey. If a frogfish needs to move faster, it can employ a form of jet propulsion, expelling water through its gill openings to make short, rapid bursts. This can vary depending on the species. For example, the highly specialized sargassum fish drifts among floating seaweed mats rather than staying on the sea floor. It moves around using its prehensile fins to climb through the seaweed or passively drifting alongside it. These adaptations, a combination of shape, texture, coloration, and locomotion, make frogfishes highly effective ambush predators, capable of remaining almost invisible while waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Frogfishes are masters of ambush predation, relying on patience, stealth, and clever deception rather than speed. Their hunting strategy revolves around aggressive mimicry. They present their esker that closely resembles a fish, shrimp, or worm, enticing nearby animals to come within striking range. Interestingly, research suggests that the exact shape or structure of the lure doesn't strictly determine which prey the frogfish attracts. Rather, movement, position, and context seem to be far more important. Some species enhance the illusion further with filamentous extensions or bright markings on the lure, mimicking the motion and texture of natural prey in their surroundings. Unlike their deep-sea relatives, which often rely on bioluminescent lures to attract prey in total darkness, frogfishes inhabit shallow waters where light is abundant. Their lures are therefore purely visual and rely on camouflage and realistic movement to fool potential prey rather than glow. This distinction underlines how the shallow water environment has shaped a different approach to aggressive mimicry within the anglerfish lineage. Once a potential meal comes close enough, the frogfish strikes with astonishing speed. Their highly extendable mouths can open in a fraction of a second, creating a suction powerful enough to pull in prey nearly as large as themselves. In some species, this entire feeding strike takes as little as 6 milliseconds, making it one of the fastest movements among vertebrates relative to body size. Specialized muscles and ligaments allow the jaw and throat bones to snap forward explosively, while the frogfish's compact, robust body stabilizes the strike. Hunting success also relies on subtle behavioral adaptations. Frogfishes often remain motionless for hours, sometimes adjusting their position to match prevailing currents, ensuring their lure drifts naturally in front of potential prey. Their unusual walking behavior allows them to approach or reposition without giving themselves away, a deliberate movement that complements their camouflage and deception. In combination, these traits, precise use of the lure, explosive strikes, patient stillness, and careful positioning, make frogfishes formidable ambush predators, perfectly adapted to life as sit-and-wait hunters on complex reef landscapes. Frogfishes have a fairly typical fish reproductive strategy, with separate males and females and external fertilization. The female releases eggs, while the male releases sperm over them. Some aspects of their reproduction, however, are unusual. Many species produce a pelagic egg veil, a floating gelatinous sheet containing thousands of eggs that drifts with the ocean's currents. This veil can stretch several centimeters across and help spread offspring over a wide area, increasing the likelihood that at least some will find suitable habitat. After hatching, the larvae spend several days to weeks as plankton, feeding on microscopic organisms, before eventually settling onto the reef and transforming into their adult form. Unlike some of their deep-sea anglerfish relatives, frogfishes do not exhibit strong sexual dimorphism. Males and females look very similar. The egg veil is a clever adaptation that offsets the adult's very limited mobility. Because adult frogfishes are such poor dispersers, each population tends to be highly localized. By releasing eggs into the currents, they ensure that at least some of their offspring can reach new habitats and maintain gene flow across the reef, as well as enhancing reproductive success in a complex and competitive environment. Frogfishes are a remarkably diverse family with about 50 species spread out across 22 genera. What's truly striking is that much of this diversity occurs not just between genera, but also within a single genus. Antenarius, for example, contains species that vary dramatically in colour, form, and habitat. We will not be able to cover all species today, or even all of the genera, but by looking at a selection, we can begin to appreciate some of this diversity. Let's start with Antenarius, the largest genus with 12 species. The painted frogfish, Antenarius pictus, is one of the most visually striking frogfishes. Its body can be red, yellow, orange, or mottled with multiple colours, perfectly matching the surrounding reef. This camouflage is complemented by small bumps and textures that break up its outline. Found across shallow Indo-Pacific reefs, it perches among corals, sponges, and algae, remaining almost invisible to both prey and predators. Like other frogfishes, it can change coloration over the course of days or weeks, but it typically has 3 eye spots on its fins, helping to distinguish it from close relatives. Contrast this with the warty frogfish, Antenarius maculatus, which is covered in pronounced bumps and warts, giving it a lumpy, textured appearance that makes it extremely difficult to distinguish from sponges. Its colour changeability is especially well documented. During a coral bleaching event, local populations were observed turning stark white to match the dead coral, with their bumps shaded green to mimic algae. And then there's the giant frogfish, Antenarius commerson, which can reach up to 40 centimeters or over 15 inches, making it the largest frogfish species. Even within the single genus, the range of shapes, textures, and colors is extraordinary. The genus Phalorhynchus contains 8 species, often called rough-jaw frogfishes. One of the best known is Phalorhynchus avallonus, widespread in the eastern Pacific. It is unusually adaptable, found from the intertidal zone including mudflats, down to depths of 300 meters or just under 1,000 feet, far deeper than most frogfishes. Other species occur in the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, but most share the rough-jawed look. Their teeth make them particularly good at gripping slippery prey like small fish or squid. Moving away from the reef, the sargassum fish, Histrio histrio, represents a genus all by itself. Instead of perching on corals, it floats among drifting mats of sargassum seaweed in tropical oceans. Its body is covered in long, hair-like filaments that mimic seaweed, while its prehensile fins allow it to cling to this floating habitat as it drifts across the open ocean. While it prefers to crawl or climb through the seaweed, it can swim short distances to grab passing prey or find a better perch. It is also the only frogfish known to leap out of the water when disturbed. This pelagic lifestyle makes the sargassum fish an outlier among frogfishes, a lineage that has adapted to life far from the reefs that the rest of the family depends on. Some frogfishes specialize in extremely small niches, exploiting spaces that larger species cannot. Coetorichthys versipillis, commonly called the rough anglerfish, is a tiny, cryptic species that often hides in the crevices of rocks or among specific sponges. This genus also includes Coetorichthys pietschii, described only in 2013. Its small size and microhabitat specialization is likely why this species escaped notice for so long. With new frogfishes being described in the 2010s, first the Coetorichthys species and then the red-fingered anglerfish the following year, it shows not only how frogfish taxonomy is still being revised and refined, but also how new species, even among relatively well-known vertebrates, are still being discovered. There is always more to learn about the world around us. The greatest mistake we could make is assuming we know everything, even the deceptively complicated task of knowing the animals we share this planet with. Back to the frogfishes, another standout is Lophiocharon, a genus of 3 species with one of the most unusual reproductive strategies in the family. Rather than using the pelagic egg veil of other frogfishes, the female attaches her eggs to the male, who cares for them until they hatch. This care is not just for protection. He actively fans his fins over the eggs to increase water flow and oxygen supply. This is not only a dramatic contrast to the reproductive strategy of other frogfishes, but highly unusual among fish in general. The reasons Lophiocharon species have evolved this form of parental care are unknown, but it is likely related to either significant predation or strong ocean currents in their range. The deep water frogfish, Nudian Tenarius subteres, is a little studied species from the Indo-Pacific, representing a genus of which it is the only member. Unlike the many warty species, it has a smooth, rounded body, spending its time nestled among soft coral, almost never being encountered among harder types of coral, showing yet another example of specialization within this group. The remaining genera I'm covering are all found only in Australian waters, which show a remarkable diversity of frogfishes. The red-fingered anglerfish, Porphyrin erythrodactylus, is a highly specialized species, known only from the coast of New South Wales, Australia. Only described in 2014, it is instantly recognizable by the bright red fringing on its fins. There are many other frogfishes endemic to Australia. These weird and wonderful fish include Rhynchaeris filamentosus, the tasseled anglerfish, with an unusually long elysium. As its name suggests, it is covered in more frills and appendages to disguise it into looking like the growth on the sea floor. Philophrine scortea, the white-spotted anglerfish, takes this concept even further with elaborate leafy appendages, providing great camouflage in the kelp forests it inhabits. Its esker or lure is oval with hair-like filaments at its tip. The strange appearance of its esker does not appear to be to lure specific food. It is still a generalist predator, the same as the rest of its family. Tachycarpus butleri, Butler's frogfish, is one of the most distinctive frogfishes with a flattened body and unusually long and arm-like fins. It can move each ray in its fins individually like fingers to steady itself or grasp objects. Its elysium is also extremely long compared to other anglerfish, getting up to almost half of its body length in some individuals. Together, these genera highlight the evolutionary experiments that have taken place in Australia's isolated waters. On the other hand, there are the tougher deep water specialists, such as the prickly frogfishes, genus Echinophrine. Their 3 species are covered in hard spines and rough skin, found mostly in southern Australian habitats. Their spines make them resemble echinoderms more than the corals or kelp that most frogfish mimic. Another genus, Alanichthes, contains just one little-known deep-water species, Alanichthes glauerti, or Glauert's anglerfish, also restricted to southern Australia. In total, Australia has 27 species of frogfishes over 13 genera, and 6 of those genera are found nowhere else. So why does Australia have so many unique frogfishes? This is not restricted to frogfishes either. The Australian waters are teeming with incredible diversity of seahorses, echinoderms, sponges and other fish. Partly, it's the extraordinary range of habitats, from rocky reefs and kelp forests to sponge gardens and soft sediments. Add to this Australia's long isolation and the warm ocean currents bringing tropical waters into a cooler, temperate climate. The result is a truly unusual environment, where species can evolve in isolation and adapt to niches that don't exist anywhere else. And because frogfishes are poor dispersers, each population can easily become its own evolutionary experiment. Taken together, the different genera of frogfishes show just how many ways evolution can shape a single family of animals, from giants to miniatures, reef dwellers to open ocean drifters, and camouflaged ambush predators to spine-covered specialists of the southern seas. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of frogfishes. From shallow coral reefs to drifting mats of seaweed, these fishes are masters of disguise. Ambush predators shaped over millions of years to blend seamlessly into their aquatic environments. While many fishes show incredible variety, frogfishes stand out for their combination of camouflage, aggressive mimicry, and unusual locomotion. Their story reminds us how life can innovate to survive in some of the most unexpected ways. So, if this video sparked your curiosity, don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it, and keep learning. There's still so much to discover about the world's rare and remarkable species. And the more we understand, the better our chances of protecting them. Thanks for watching. If there's another fascinating species you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments below.